All you got to do is keep track of the bets over time, and at any given time when you reach break even or Series A, you'll know exactly what the equity split should be. And this is a model that's been used all over the world since then, and it always works because it's just based on the rational logic of fairness. It's not based on guesses or opinions about future events.
Today we have Mike Moyer, manager of Fair and Square Ventures. Welcome, Mike.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Thanks for coming on. Mike, I'm interested. Tell us about your business.
Well, Fair and Square Ventures is basically me, and I have a small staff, but I run a couple of businesses out of there. One of them is called Slicingpie, which is a software as a service for startup companies to help them determine their equity splits. And I also run a company called Mosquito Oasis, which is a mosquito net tent company. We make mosquito nets for Boy Scouts camps. So we're one of the big suppliers from Boy Scouts of America. And I do a few other odds and ends. I write a lot of books and I do speaking engagements and things like that, typical author type stuff.
Yeah, great. And so, where would you like to focus today?
Well, my main expertise, what I'm most known for, are equity splits in early stage companies. So,
Great.
one of the things that most startups and even follow-on companies have is a confusion about how to divide up equity among their employees and their founding partners.
Yeah, for sure. So, can you give us a bit of a rundown, and I guess first how you got started, and then what the value is that Slicing Pie kind of brings to the marketplace.
Sure. So I've been an entrepreneur most of my career. I've gone from startup company. My first startup was in college. I owned a merchandising company, and then I went to real job, then went to startup job, then real job, and real job, back and forth, back and forth. And consistently, as I went into startup jobs, there would be this need to partner with people, but I couldn't afford to pay them. As many startups face this problem, they don't have enough money to pay. The way startups finance themselves is by simply not paying people. So they can't pay salaries, they just don't pay salaries. They can't pay their expenses, they just don't pay expenses. Um, so the automatic go-to tool for that is equity. But most people divide up equity incorrectly. They try to divide it up in advance of anything happening. So you and I, for instance, will start a company and we'll go in 50-50 because we're friends. And then you'll do all the work. And so I own half your company, so you're stuck with me. Or we'll do 50-50 and you will want to hire a programmer and it'll help me, but not you. So should it come out of my share or your share? So there's always an argument. It's called a fixed equity split. When you set percentages in advance of any work being done, you're setting what's called a fixed equity split. It has to be constantly be renegotiated and renegotiated. So it always fails. And throughout history, that's been the main problem. 60 to 80% of all equity deals wind up in dispute that requires legal intervention. It means lawyers are probably going to have to be hired once you do make that mistake. And it's extremely common. And smart, well meaning, experienced people make this mistake all the time. But having been through this a number of times and having been screwed on both ends of the screwing, I've got more than I deserve sometimes and less than I deserve at other times. I sat down about 10 years ago and I kind of wrote what I thought was going to kind of be a hacker's guide to fairness for startups. And what I've realized over the years is that fairness is not a matter of opinions, it's a matter of facts. And in business, facts are always observable and they're always quantifiable. So, one area of life where everything is quantifiable and observable. Everything in your life in business you can pay for. And that's true for everything. And the best way to understand how slicing pie works is a game of blackjack. Do you know how to play blackjack?
I do, yes.
Let's pretend that you and I are going to play blackjack together as a team, not opponents, but as a team. We're playing together on the same hand. And we're going to split the winnings 50-50 because we're friends. So let's fist bump on it. So we go to the table and we each put $1 on the same hand of blackjack. We don't know if we're going to win. We don't know how much we're going to win. We don't know how long it's going to take to win. The future is unknowable. What we know for certain, though, is we each bet $1. So the dealer deals two aces. So we're going to split the aces and double down, okay? But I'm out of money and you're not. So you put another $2 more down to cover our bet. So now you've bet $3 and I've only bet $1. We still don't know the future. We don't know how much we're going to win or how long it's going to take to win or if we're going to win at all. We're hopeful, we're optimistic. We can't tell the future. If we do win, however, does the 50-50 split we agreed to sound fair?
Not at this stage, no.
No, it should be 75-25, right? You bet 3 times as much as I did.
Yeah,
So your share of the winnings should reflect your share of the bets.
yeah, that's good.
And that's a logical, obvious, unambiguous conclusion. In fact, there's no way I can logically argue anything different. Now we agreed to 50-50. We fist bumped on it. I could sue you and probably win. But just because we agreed
Mm,
to it and just because it was legal doesn't make it fair. What's
yeah.
fair is that your share of the winnings should reflect your share of the bets. So in startups, it's the same thing. Instead of betting on cards, we're betting on ideas. And we bet money and time and facilities and supplies and equipment and relationships. And the value of our bet is always equal to the fair market value of the contribution. So if you're a salesperson for me and I don't pay you commission, you're betting your commission. If you're salaried and I don't pay your salary, you're betting your salary. If I'm renting your space and I don't pay you rent, you're betting the rent. All you got to do is keep track of the bets over time. And at any given time, when you reach break even or Series A, you'll know exactly what the equity split should be. And this is a model that's been used all over the world since then. And it always works because it's just based on the rational logic of fairness. It's not based on guesses or opinions about future events.
I love that. That's yeah, that is an excellent concept and yeah, like and business model as well for startups. So and how has it been going? How has business been doing for you?
Well, I don't make a complete living on Slicingpie, but I'd like to. So I keep doing podcasts, things like that. One of the most common things I get is, "Gosh, I wish I'd heard about that 5 years ago or 10 years ago when I started my last company." So it's a shift in thinking. It's a basic shift in thinking, but most business people don't like new ways of thinking. They like new ways of doing and not ways of thinking. And so Slicing Pie is a big educational component to it. But one thing I noticed in startup
Love
companies and
that.
in mid-market companies too, maybe a lot of your audience is, people think they can just throw equity shares at people and that'll replace good management.
Mm,
And it rarely does that.
no.
So it reflects motivation, it doesn't cause motivation. So you got to be really careful about how you use equity and use it properly in order to make sure it doesn't just backfire on you.
Yeah, I love that. And so, what are some tips that you can give? Having seen this done poorly and successfully.
Well, the first thing is you got to agree up front to what your fair market salaries are, and that's something that people are used to negotiating. So you've had a real job before, right?
Good question. Actually, no, I haven't. Not full
You,
time.
you never you had a part-time job
A part time, yes, yeah, yeah. In
doing
school,
what?
I worked at the cinemas.
And how much do they pay you?
It was pittance back then, maybe $15 an hour.
So that's the fair market value of a cinema guy is 15
Yeah,
bucks an hour. If you
yep,
didn't like that pay, you can go somewhere else. But everyone kind of gets that amount. That's reasonable for cinema. It's easily replaceable. But you can negotiate that salary and feel good about it. And indeed, most people work for companies and don't get equity because they're getting paid a fair market salary. Did the cinema give you an equity split? Of
no,
course not. You just got paid in your whole, and that's what most people do.
yeah,
If you got paid less than that, if you were worth $15 an hour and they paid you $5 an hour, then the $10 would be your bet, and have to compensate you with equity. So you're in fact buying equity with your unpaid salary. And so the first thing you got to do is to think about what your fair market values are, and that's important for startup companies and any company, because without that number, you don't know what's going to happen in the future. Because when you can get paid, you want to get paid. If I think I'm worth $2 million a year, and you think I'm worth $30,000 a year, we're gonna have a hard time getting that paycheck written when it comes time to do that. But by agreeing up front, you can calculate what our risk is for each person and use that for our equity split. And you can make decisions about your company that are based on rational financial thought rather than just guesses about future events.
yeah. I love that. And so, how then is that calculated? Like, is that essentially kind of split as a profit share at the end, or then like at the end of year one, equity is divided up, proportionately? How does equity then get apportioned?
Well, equity has two benefits: the dividend payment, when the profits come in, if the company can decide if and when to pay dividends, or it can retain the earnings as retained earnings. So when profits come in, or you can sell the company and get your piece of the company. So what Slicing Pie produces is a fair equity split of the common shares, the basic shares in the company. And once you own your shares, you own them forever. You might get diluted down as more rounds of financing happen, but you essentially, once you acquire the shares through Slicing Pie, you own them. But before that, they're subject to forfeiture if you leave the company, for instance. What you do is you earn what's called a slice, and a slice is a fictional unit of risk, kind of like a poker chip. Imagine you're playing blackjack with poker chips. Poker chips aren't worth anything; they just mark the fact that a bet took place, and then you can later on change them to cash or change them to equity. So we use the term slice in Slicing Pie. So basically, as you contribute contributions and you're not paid, you accumulate slices. When you reach break even or Series A, you have enough money to pay everyone's expenses and pay everyone's salaries. So the pie naturally stops accumulating slices. and then it issues actual equity. And then after as the profits come in, the dividends are paid in accordance to slicing pie, just like the bet paying off, two thirds, one
Yeah,
third.
perfect. Okay, that's great. Yeah, that model definitely makes sense now. And so, what have been some of the challenges that you've kind of seen come out of that?
Well, the first challenge is people think that there's a lot of record keeping to be done. You got to keep track of your expenses and keep track of your payroll. But the truth is that most companies keep track of their payroll and most companies keep track of their expenses. There's nothing new here. In fact, if you don't have the wherewithal to track your time and expenses, you're probably not going to be a very good business person.
Yes,
If you how much do I pay this week? I don't know. You gotta know what those things are.
exactly.
So startups are kind of wishy-washy on those things because there's no cash changing hands, but there's still time and value being consumed. So you want to make sure you track it. Once you get over that hurdle, though, there's three reasons why someone wouldn't use slicing pie. The first reason is they don't get it. It's been explained to them. It doesn't quite click. They think it's too simple. There must be some game here that's going to screw them. But the truth is there's nothing they can catch. That'll you can't game it. It always works. The second reason is they don't want to learn something new, which is common. People don't want to learn things that are new. They just want their X% or whatever. And the third reason is, which is a little more sinister, is they do get it, but it's their intention to take advantage of you. They
Ooh,
understand what it means to be fair, but hey, you're desperate, so I'm gonna take advantage of you. And I've seen that a lot throughout my career. People, see a desperate entrepreneur and want to take advantage.
wow, yeah, that's huge. So, Mike, if you could go back and give your slightly younger self, let's say 5 years, a bit of advice, what would that be?
Well, I'd go back earlier than 5 years if I could do that. I'd
Yeah,
say
yeah.
I'd give me the model. I'd say listen, Mike, you don't have to sweat this. You don't have to worry you're going to get taken advantage of. Just follow this logic, and it'll work out for you. So anyone that I want to join, I could hire you and I could go into business today, and Slicing Pie would protect our interests perfectly, even though we don't know each other that well.
Mm,
All I got to do is apply the logic of fairness to my equity split, and it always works. So I don't have to worry about that. I can hire whoever I want. And that's one of the biggest limiting factors is, every time entrepreneurs go out and say they're constrained by money, constrained by their network, and they feel like they got to give away chunks of equity every time they hire someone. But that's not how it should go. You always deserve what you deserve and nothing more, nothing less. And Slicey Pie always delivers on fairness, just like in the blackjack game. It's self-adjusted as things changed, and things may continue to change. We may not win that round. Someone might come and bet, $4 in our hand, and they get half because they bet half the money. So it always adjusts based on what's going on. So people can make logical, real decisions in their lives, and it always self-adjusts. That's the nice part about it. Otherwise, people just spend a lot of time stressing about it, and it's stressful if you don't have the solution. If you do have the solution, it's simply a piece of cake.
yeah, exactly. And like you said, you can go into business with someone who you don't necessarily know, and using something based on metrics, it really gives you the ability to continue that fairness instead of having to try and renegotiate. So,
Right.
Mike, just finally, who can you best help? And if they want to get in touch, how do they reach you?
Well, the slice I can help in a lot of ways. The best way is the slicing pie model. The slicing pie handbook is on Amazon, and they can reach me through slicingpie.com. I'm always best I can through email if you have questions about it. But you can download a free sample of the book. In fact, if they email me from here, I'll send you a free. If anyone references the show in an email to me, mike@slicingpie.com, I'll send a free copy of the book. There's also a book called Will Work for Pi, which helps companies understand how to pay people and how to do bonus programs and things like that. So it's kind of a follow-on to Slicing Pie. So those two books are what I would recommend. The model is free to use; anyone can use it, and there's lawyers all over the world that implement. Um, and But I do, have books and software and spreadsheets and things like that. But I do want to make it as free as possible for people to use.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Mike. And thank you so much for coming on the show and giving us the value and a new way of thinking about how equity is provided.
Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it. It's my favorite topic.
Thanks, Mike.